We are living in a world where we are actually doubting whether it's possible to overturn a difficult scenario. Jesus Christ comes and paints a picture that even from almost nothing, he can be able to provide for our needs. Welcome to Bible Speaks today. This is a segment that actually examines whether the ideas or the insights shared in the Bible are relevant for the world today. My name is John Kimani. Welcome to Mark chapter 8. And in this passage, we examine some of the things that Jesus Christ continued teaching. We said last week from Mark chapter 7, we talked about how Jesus Christ went into a non-Jewish area and in a Gentile world where he actually healed a demon possessed lady, and how this woman had a lot of faith. And we saw that it is very important for us to be able to have faith in God, and that when we have faith in God, then we are able to then that faith in our lives is able to act or is able to do great things in our own life. Now, in chapter 8, we see few stories there. We see that Jesus Christ feeds 4,000 people, how he healed a blind man, and actually a confession from Peter of who Jesus was in the eyes of the disciples. But again, for the first time, we see Jesus Christ actually saying that he will be killed, but again, he will rise again. So during those days, another large crowd gathered. Now, there's something we want to say right here, that Jesus Christ was a crowd puller. He was somebody, wherever he went, without billboard, without the advantage of TikTok and the social media, people followed him. And imagine, this was not even in a Jewish area. This was in a non-Gentile area. Remember in chapter 7, Jesus was in Decapolis, in a non-Gentile area, and we can ask ask ourselves, how comes that Jesus Christ was able to pull crowd? Verse 2 actually says, since they had nothing to eat, Jesus called his disciples and said, verse 2, I have compassion for these people. They already had been with me for 3 days. Think about that. Jesus has been with these people for 3 days. Think about that, for 3 days. And these people were reasoning to him. Okay, they didn't have anything to eat. They were reasoning to him day 1, day 2, day 3, for 3 full days. And Jesus actually in verse 3 says, if I send them home angry, they will collapse. In other words, they will die, because they have come a long distance. And Jesus Christ was a crowd puller because he felt the needs of the people. He was compassionate. He was moved by pity. He saw people's needs. He saw people's challenges. He knew the challenges that they were going through. Now look at Jesus, very sensitive. He says, I have been with these people for 3 days. They have stayed with me. They have reasoned to me. If I send them away, if I ask them to go, and they have covered a long distance, they will collapse along the way. Jesus was a different leader. He was sensitive to people's need. And what we are saying is, every time when you are interested in people's problems, every time when you show that you are concerned, you are bothered, you understand the challenges that the people are going through, people will follow you wherever you go. And we think in our own thinking, this is the difference maker between today's leader and Jesus. Jesus was interested in people. Jesus was bothered by the problems of the people. Jesus was concerned. Jesus knew what the people were going through. He is completely opposite of his disciples, because when he asked his disciples, what do you think we need to do? Look at how the disciples, again, in chapter 6, we saw them irresponsible. They lacked sensitivity. They were inadequate. They lacked faith. They replied to Jesus, but where in this remote place can we get enough bread to feed the people? where again they were indifferent, again they lacked belief, again they felt inadequate to solve the problem, again they didn't have pity, again they had forgotten the previous miracle in Mark chapter 6 where Jesus had fed 5,000 people with 12 baskets full of food. And it just shows that we can be leaders like our disciples who actually don't care. Who, for us, whatever people are going through is none of our problems, is none of our challenge. And it is very important for us to be able to realize that whatever it is that people are going through is our problem. Jesus was able to attract crowds because, number one, he was interested in people's problem. He knew their challenges. He understood, and that kind of feeling, the empathy that Jesus had on people's problem, actually attracted crowds to come to him. Now, it is very important for us to be able to define crowds and say this, that the kind of people that Jesus Christ attracted were not noble people. They were not leaders. They were not important people, but they were the common, everyday kind of a person, the Wanjikos and the Wagios, the ordinary people, and they form the majority. The common people are the majority in any nation. They are the common people, hustlers, if you like, and these were the people who are helpless, people who are not able to afford a meal, people who cannot be able to put a roof on their head. The majority of people, the commoners, are the people that actually follow Jesus because Jesus cared for them. Jesus loved them. Jesus was interested in them. And if there's any politician, if there's any pastor, if there's any businessman who shall be able to attract crowds to him or to herself, then you really need to be interested in the people. You really need to be bothered by the problems that people are going through. And so he asked them, Jesus Christ asked them, how many loaves do you have? And they answer 7. And he asked the disciples, the whole crowd, to sit down. It was around 4,000. And this was to prepare them that there was something sumptuous, there was something sweet that was coming to them. And when he got the loaves and the fish, he took them and gave thanks. Some version would say he actually blessed them, actually he multiplied them, and he gave them, and the people ate in verse 8 and were satisfied. They were filled to satisfaction, and their 3-day hunger was forgotten, was handed over. And if that was not enough, Jesus asked the disciples to collect 7 basketfuls of the remainder, which is a proof that these people were full. And again, it also means that Jesus does not like wastages. And in line with what the Right Reverend Patrick Thego said when he was doing his acceptance speech, we need to do away with wastages. There's a lot of wastages of resources, wastages of time, wastages of human resource, of human capital. And Jesus Christ, in asking the disciples to collect the 7 basketful, what he actually is trying to teach us is that we do not need to have wastages in our lives. And the question that we are asking is, are we good stewards of time? Are we good stewards of the resources that God has given us? And even when we are proposing a project, the question is this: do we make prudent investment decision, or are we actually bothered when an investment actually is plummeting, when businesses are diving? And are we doing enough so that those businesses do not nosedive, but they keep on helping or maximizing or growing in profit? Because Jesus does not like wastages. Now, as a contractor, as a boss, when you're given a project, do you complete them? And when you go into a institution and you find there was a project that your predecessor actually did not complete, do you complete it, or do you start another project, leaving that project unfinished? Actually wasting people's money. As a governor, as a politician, do you take care of the taxpayer that is given to you, or do you use it in wasteful priorities, in activities that are not profitable, that are wasteful? Could Kenya be making more strides economically should wastages be removed? Okay, how do you use the government vehicle? How do you use the resources that are given to you? Do you use them in a profitable way, in a way that can benefit everybody, or do you use them in a wasteful manner? A big challenge there. And we see the numbers that actually were there, that were fed around 4,000 people. And interesting enough, in verse 10, Jesus actually gets into a boat and disappears into a town called Darmarutha, and that was a seashore, a small town in the seashore of Lake Tiberias. Now we learn a few things about Jesus' provision, which we shall just quickly say. Now Jesus is able to multiply small things into large quantities. Number 2, Jesus is able to supply to the satisfaction. Number 3, Jesus provides to meet the real needs. Jesus' provision is to meet real needs, the felt needs. And we are asking the church, and we are asking the government, and we are asking the business community that we must be able to provide. We must be able to come up with projects. We must be able to come up with ideas. We must be able to generate projects, or build up projects, or ideas, or entrepreneurship activities that are actually to meet the real needs of the people. And every time when we meet the real needs of the people, then people are going to come to us and we shall have answered. But again, number 4, one of the other things that we learn about Jesus' provision is that it is always beyond. Jesus Christ always goes beyond. He does not actually provide to meet the need, but actually goes beyond, because there was the reminder. Interesting enough, in verse 11, Mark actually says the Pharisees come. We are thinking they are coming to congratulate Jesus and to tell him how wonderful he is, but unfortunately we see they come to question, to dispute him, to debate with him, to test him, to trap him, so that they can put him into trouble. And they are actually asking for a sign, for a spectacular happening that would prove that Jesus Christ actually came from God. And they are not actually appreciating. They are not actually telling Jesus to perform another miracle so that people can be blessed and people can be helped. No, they're simply asking, show us a spectacular miracle. Look at the selfishness. Look at the greed. Look at the unbelief that they have. And no wonder in verse 12, for the second time, Jesus sighed deeply. In fact, Mark says Jesus sighed deeply. And in chapter 7, verse 34, we saw Jesus sighed. Actually, he was deeply concerned because the deaf person had been oppressed for long without talking. And Jesus at this time is expressing his distress over their unbelief. And actually ask loudly to nobody. He asked, why does this generation ask for a sign? How long will these people continue with their unbelief? How long will these people continue rejecting me? How long will these people accept that it is God who have given, it is God who have called me? And Jesus, in a blatant refusal, actually says, truly I tell you, get this straight for me. I'm not missing my words. No sign will be done to you. In other words, your request is not approved. Whatever it is that you are asking for cannot be done, because you need to believe the things that I have done. If you not to believe those things, then to hell with you, so to speak. And what does Jesus do? Because he was actually disturbed, he leaves them. he goes away. He leaves them and goes back to the boat. And where does he go? He goes back and cross the other side. Terrible. And actually, there is prudence there that you really don't need to waste your time arguing with some people, especially on issues of unbelief. When people don't believe in you, when people question you and are asking you to do things that are beyond, are not in line with what you are called to do or in line with your mission, just pack and leave. Ignore them. Oh, doesn't end there. And I think you, Sapienza School, you're saying you are following from Rera and you're taking notes. Thank you very much, Sapienza. And the disciples, Mark reports to us that the disciples had forgotten, had forgotten to bring bread except one loaf that they had with them in the boat. I think in the hurry, when Jesus actually is distressed and discouraged because of unbelief, he leaves immediately, and they did not actually carry the 7 basketfuls. It was only one loaf that was in the boat. And Jesus in verse 14 actually says, be careful. Jesus warns them. In other words, he gives them instruction. In other words, he guides them. He says, watch out for the yeast. And yeast in this matter actually was pointing to the corruption that was pervading. You know, yeast, when it is put in a dough, of course, of wheat, actually is able to spread in an invisible manner and to infect, so that the yeast puffs up or actually the dough becomes grows big. And very interesting, the disciples seems not to understand, and they say maybe the reason why Jesus is telling us that we become careful is because we did not come with bread, and they simply not to understand. And Jesus actually is really concerned again. He asked them, why are you talking about having no bread? Do you still not see or understand? Are your hearts hardened? Do you have eyes but fail to see and eyes but fail to hear? And don't you remember when I broke 5 loaves for the 5,000 people, how many basketfuls of pieces do you pick? And they answer correctly, 12. And when I broke 7 loaves for the 4,000 people, how many basketfuls of pieces did you pick? They answered 7. And he said, do you still not understand? And it is possible for us to experience the miracles of God, the happenings of God, the breakthroughs of the Lord, and yet not understand. And what we are asking from us, may the Lord give us spiritual understanding. May the Lord give us guidance, such that we are able, deep revelation, so that we are able to understand the move of the Lord, so that we can be able to know that which the Lord is doing in our lives, because it is possible for us to experience fellowship with God. It is possible for us to see what the Lord is doing in our lives, yet lack spiritual understanding, yet lack to catch the revelation, yet miss the way, yet miss the move of God. And Jesus is simply very worried that, do you not still understand? And our prayer is that you are going to understand why God is allowing this pandemic, why God is allowing some things to happen, that you will be able to be spiritually alert, so that you can move in the move of God. Now we continue for verse 32, that Jesus Christ again, they continue. Jesus is not actually bothered by these people. He goes to Bethsaida, the site of fishing, and some people actually brings a brideman. And what do? They beg Jesus. They feel they are not entitled. And we've said it, and we continue saying it again. When we go to Jesus Christ, we don't really need to feel entitled. We need to go there with humility. It is not our right to be healed by Jesus. It is not our right to be delivered by Jesus. It is not our right to be given that which we are asking from God. We need to go there with humility, feeling that we are not entitled. It is his will to decide whether to give to us. And interesting enough, Jesus takes him out of the village, and actually the thing that he does by spitting on the man's eyes and putting his hands on him are actually unique and spectacular. He has never done something like this, but actually the reason why he is doing that is to increase this person's faith and actually ask him, do you see anything? And then he looks up and says, well, I don't see anything. I see people looking walking around like trees. And then he repeats the same action again, and then his eyes are actually open and his sight is actually restored and he sees everything um, um, clearly. But there is the instruction here. He tells this guy, don't even go into the village. And maybe we can pause right there and ask the question, why does he ask them? Why does Jesus ask this guy not to go to the village? In fact, he says, he says, don't go there first. Okay? In other words, Jesus Christ does not want this miracle to become public. Jesus was not an opinion seeker. He was not actually seeking opinion. He was not interested in becoming popular. Jesus was actually interested in pursuing his mission. Jesus was not in a popularity contest. We've always said, and Jesus' goal was to accomplish his mission. He is not like today's pastors who have been described as a mighty man of God. No, for Jesus Christ is even telling him, don't go to the village, don't speak about it, let it remain silent. Very interesting. In verse 27, we see that in another village, is Caesarea Philippi, on his way. He asked his disciples a very interesting question and asked them to who do people say I am? And that was around 25 miles all the way from Bethsaida. And this city of Caesarea Philippi is actually located at the source of Jordan River, at the slopes of Mount Hermon, okay, where Herod was actually ruled from there. And so as they are walking, Jesus asked them a very simple question. And when Jesus actually uses a question, we've said it was an avenue, it was a way of actually beginning a teaching. And so he asked them, who do people say I am? Look at the way he asked them, who do people say I am? And so some people say you're John the Baptist, others say you are Elijah, and others they say you are one of the prophets. But again, and without building a lot on that, but if you look at the John the Baptist and Elijah, these are notable people by that time. Welcome, George Omura. But then he asks them, but who? But you? He turns actually to them and asks them, okay, that is what people say that I am. What about you? And without thinking, Peter actually answered, you are the Messiah. Peter's response was very simple. It was direct. If you ask me, and again for the second time, Jesus warns them and tells them, please keep it quiet. Again, Jesus did not want it to be known. Actually, he ordered them. It was an order, if you like it, the language there. And maybe we are thinking it would have been a very perfect way of telling them, okay, go and explain to people, because people had many false ideas about him. We are thinking that Jesus Christ would have actually encouraged his disciples to go there and actually correct the wrong impression that he was a nationalistic, political deliverer person who was called to free the Jews from Roman domination. But again, he warned them, because his mission to the world was actually broader, was actually bigger than this. Okay? And he actually told them to keep quiet. And in verse 31, very interesting, as we come to this end, what does Jesus do? He actually taught them. He actually did what we call the didasko. He wanted them to understand. He taught in a way so that they can be able to understand. He wanted them to comprehend and to get it. And he taught them that the Son of Man, again, a very unique title that Jesus uses here, must suffer, must go through problems, must be rejected by the teachers of the law, and that you'll be killed. But then look at the end of the story. He will rise again. So it was not enough that Jesus would suffer. It was not enough that Jesus Christ would be rejected. It was not enough that Jesus Christ would be subjected to problems or challenges. But the end of the story is that Jesus Christ would come back to life. In other words, the problems that Jesus Christ would be subjected to were not powerful enough to bring him down, but he would be able to triumph against them and would emerge a winner. And the Bible says he spoke plainly about this, and it looks like he was not actually afraid. And what happens? Peter, being a hero a while ago, he went there and rebuked Jesus. He told them, Jesus, no, you're not dying, and we can't allow you to die. Okay? We can't allow you, Jesus, to die. Okay? And he rebukes them in what we call get behind me, Satan. Because Peter did not understand that the whole essence of Jesus Christ coming to the world was to save people. If Jesus would not go to suffer on the cross, then our salvation would not come. And actually, if you read verse 34 all the way to verse 38, he is simply saying to us that the only way, the salvation of Christianity is part of it is going through problems. If you can read verse 35, he says, for whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me and for the gospel will save it. And we need to tell ourselves as believers that part of Christianity, part of the package, part of what we call Christianity, part of what we call Christian life is suffering. We must be rejected. We must be insulted. We must be cast. We must be fought. We must be criticized. The cup of suffering, we must drink from it. And this is what Jesus Christ is simply saying. The salvation, the gospel that we preach, that is going to be well in Jesus, mambo sawa sawa, does not apply here. Jesus is simply saying that if you want to become my disciple, if you decide to follow me, if you accept Jesus Christ as your personal savior, when you come to this path, it's a way of cross. You must deny yourself and take up the cross and follow me. It's about calling humiliation. We must not be seen as very important people. The government will reject us. The government will persecute us. In other words, it's not going to be easy. And then in verse 38, if anyone is ashamed of me, that means we must speak publicly. We must tell everybody about Jesus Christ, and we must identify ourselves with Jesus Christ. Although we are rejected, though we are not liked, though we are not appreciated, though we are taken as evil people, or as low class people, we must be willing to go alongside with the ridicule, with the criticism that goes along with being Christians. And let me ask us today, have you been embarrassed or been denied an opportunity because you are Christian? Have you been criticized, or have you been ridiculed, or have you been laughed, been mocked because you are Christian? If that is happening, then that is the food, that is the lifestyle of Christians. Well, we appreciate Sapienza and George Omura and actually Sari Mwangi for keeping us company. That was Bible Speaks Today, a segment that actually examines the ideas and the insights that are in the Bible, just checking whether they are real or they are relevant for today's life. We encourage you to go to our YouTube channel, Inawezekana TV, the hope, the voice of hope, and subscribe and keep watching. And until next week, my name is John Kimani. Remember what you always say here, inawezekana.